Where are the men? But the problem is that today, it seems like we're not around. I mean, we're around, we're just not around. Because most men choose to be more like the abominable snowman, footprints everywhere, but nowhere to be found. We live in a generation of boys that are being raised to be men, just like their mothers. Because 70% of them in the African American community don't have fathers. And 40% and rising in the Anglo community don't have fathers. So I'm just saying we're around, we're just not around. Spending all of our time right in the middle of a decaying culture that we ourselves have bound. Women, forced to be mothers, fathers, leaders, protectors, nurturers, providers. They're pretty much doing it all, operating all outside of their created being. But then you and I, we want to take them to the counselor and tell the counselor that she won't submit. Submit? Submit to what? Submit to a man who won't submit? Well, that would automatically create friction, and besides, it's an inherent contradiction. Jesus' whole life was about submitting to the Father. So if we're supposed to be men who are following Christ, we ought to submit as he did, so that our kids can watch us submit to the Father. So the problems you feel you have with your wife, the next man won't experience with your daughter. Girls have a twisted view of love these days. They'll literally date the devil just to experience a man. While boys think their manhood is wrapped into how many women they can sleep with, just like their Rolling Stone daddies, and handling their problems with a gun in their hand, all because of the absence of a man. Oh, we're around. I'm just saying we're not around. Look around. Our culture is suffering because of the man's unwillingness to suffer. But when I look at Christ, I see that he suffered, especially when he hung on the cross. So it seems to me that suffering is the job description given to man from the boss. Suffer. That requires that you and I be a little bit tougher. And I'm not talking about just staying at work later or chasing harder after shiny things and dreams. You know how men do. Even though I do realize that we all have to provide. I'm talking about suffering and Christ's sufferings, because that's the only thing that'll keep your legacy in mind. Like when my granddad died and he was there laying on his death cot, his kids and his kids' weren't standing around talking about the things that he bought. I think not. It was more like when my sister Crystal ran over to him and said, Grandpa, your grandkids are running around going crazy as if this is a day to celebrate. Do you want me to quiet the boys? Grandpa said, No, Crystal, you don't understand. This is a day to celebrate because I wanted to die to this noise. And then it happened. He fell asleep right there in the middle of his own den. But I can still see the pride in his face because he was surrounded by all his kingdom men that came from him. Yeah, we prayed with him. And we also thanked him for not letting anything in his life be a deterrent. Because now that allows his legacy the opportunity one day to hear what he heard that day. Well done, my good and faithful servant. But I got another granddad. We call him Two Daddy. He's in Baltimore. He still lives. And I know you may know a little bit about his story because that's how Tony Evans is who he is. First generation Christian. Don't think the Evans family was always saved. You'd be amazed. From high school dropouts to drugs and poverty, that was our legacy back in the days. But Two Daddy found that word. He ran into Christ and then he got saved. And he held that thing close and never fumbled it, even though his wife took him through an emotional maze. And that lasted for about 365 days. He suffered a lot as well. But on day 366, she even came downstairs with tears in her eyes because the Spirit put her under a spell. And I'm not talking abracadabra. This was a courageous investment of two daddies' time. And now that 1 year of suffering has become a 50-year harvest that I can call mine, and my wife, and my son, and my daughter, and my child to come. And it's our job to hold that legacy tight until Jesus comes and says that it's done. But enough about me. What about you? What has your legacy become? And if your legacy hasn't started yet, then I dare you to be the first one. But that's enough. They gave me 20 minutes, but I figured 6 would say what I need to say. Besides, my prayer is simple, that the men in this room will become kingdom men, if not already, and start building your legacies today. Now that's greatness.